Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Columbus Public Safety Director Ned Pettis Jr., and today we are here to announce a new leader for the Columbus Division of Police and a new chapter in public safety in the city. At this time in Columbus, it's tough to imagine a more important decision than this. The challenges are great, the work is essential, and the opportunity is enormous. Our next chief of police will lead a force full of exceptionally talented and dedicated professionals. She will also take on some of the most urgent problems facing law enforcement across America. Soaring rates of violence and homicide, fear and mistrust in our minority communities, and implementing the change and reform to repair what is broken. We have made historic changes to help this division and our next chief meet the expectations of the communities that we serve. Our robust recruitment efforts have helped us seat some of the most diverse recruit classes in recent history. For the first time ever, a civilian police review board and an independent inspector general will investigate and oversee allegations of wrongdoing. We changed the leadership structure of the Division of Police, and that means for the first time, the new chief will be able to bring in their own executive staff to help guide the division. And of course, for the first time ever, our chief of police is from outside of the division. The process of selecting a new chief has been rigorous. From 34 applicants, we conducted interviews with 9 finalists. The final 4 candidates fielded questions from residents in our virtual town hall. We then turned to the community, gathering feedback from dozens of stakeholders. I'll say it again, the challenges are great, the work is essential, and the opportunity is enormous. And I have complete confidence in our new chief that she is up to the task. So now to introduce the person he has chosen to meet this very important moment in our city's history, please help me welcome the Honorable Mayor Andrew Ginther.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Director Pettis, for your ongoing leadership in the face of unprecedented challenges and for your thoughtful engagement throughout this search process. We are better for your insight and counsel as we work to select the next chief of police for the city of Columbus. Thank you, Director. Thanks as well to my staff, most especially Deputy Chief of Staff Kate Pisciotti, and for all of her work and support with Ralph Anderson and Associates, and in coordination with the Columbus Civil Service Commission and Department of Human Resources, led a thorough search process. I also want to give special thanks to retired Columbus police officer and Columbus Civilian Police Review Board member Willard McIntosh, who served on the interview committee, and all of the community stakeholders who provided feedback and advice, and who actively participated in our virtual town hall. I also want to take a moment to thank our interim Chief of Police, Mike Woods, for extending his distinguished service to our community and ensuring the effective management of the Division of Police as we work to identify our next leader. We are grateful to Chief Woods for his service and the contributions and sacrifice of the Woods family to support him with said service. Neighbors, we are at a critical moment in our city's history as we work to move through and past the pandemic that has gripped all of us for more than a year. COVID-19 has laid bare the racial and economic disparities, inequities that have long divided our city, our state, and our nation. disparities, inequities in public health, housing, education, employment. And it has highlighted the disproportionate impact of violence and an old, outdated system of policing on communities of color. It has amplified the calls for racial justice, rooted in a distrust of police in our community, especially among our Black and brown neighbors. At the same time, we face the prospect of what could be the most violent year in our city's history, with so many of the victims being our young people, and overwhelmingly African American. COVID-19 did not create these disparities, but underscore the urgent need to confront them, to dismantle the systems that created them, and to build a more equitable, inclusive, and resilient community. We're working every day to call out and root out systemic racism wherever we find it. Our corporations, our faith community, our nonprofit, institutions of higher education, city and state government, and our division of police. To make meaningful and lasting reform, we have made some historic progress. We're holding our officers accountable, making changes to police use of force and training, and we're developing an alternative crisis response, getting the right response at the right time to our neighbors in need. And for the first time in our city's history, we will have independent civilian oversight of police. Still, our work is just beginning, and there is so much more work to do to create a 21st century division of police that meets and exceeds our community's expectations. In order to make the change and reform we seek, we need a police chief who is committed to change. We need a leader with extensive experience in law enforcement, as well as sound judgment, empathy, and a commitment to community policing. We have found all of this in Elaine Bryant, who I'm happy to announce is my selection as the next Chief of Columbus Division of Police. This is a new day for the division and for the city of Columbus, with our first ever chief from outside the division and the first African American woman to hold this position. But that history is not as significant as the change in culture of policing that we will make together to rebuild trust with the community and to keep Columbus neighborhoods safe. Chief Bryant is a change agent, a reformer. In her 21 years with the Detroit Police Department, she's worked patrol in underserved neighborhoods, instituted changes in how homicide teams were assigned, resulting in a 10% increase in cases solved, justice for families, worked in domestic violence, worked in the Equal Employment Opportunity Office, Internal Affairs, and the Detroit Civilian Oversight. She worked as a liaison between the police and faith communities, created and implemented several different community relations and engagements efforts and initiatives, and she spent 13 of her 21 years with the department under a consent decree from the Department of Justice. Because we know that we're going to need the help of the federal government to make the changes and reforms we know we need to make here in Columbus. Chief Bryant has that experience. She brings with her the ability to make difficult decisions. She overhauled the disciplinary process in Detroit and developed a reputation for holding officers accountable. But at the same time, she possesses a collaborative spirit, recognizing the importance of support for officers and of mentoring women and minorities all along the ranks. She's well aware of the difficulties facing her in accepting this position. But based on what I've heard about her, her track record, and her family, she has never shied away from a great challenge. We're so thrilled to have Chief Bryant's mother, aunt, friends, and support from Detroit here today to support her as we introduce her as our new chief. She will be an incredible leader for this community, for our division of police. It is my pleasure to introduce Columbus's next police chief, Chief Elaine Bryant.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Ginther. I am humbled and I'm honored to be chosen as the next chief of police for this great city of Columbus. I also want to thank my mother, Gwen, for being here with me today. Mom, you are my inspiration. I'm the woman I am today because of you. I also want to thank my Aunt Elaine for being here as well. And I'd like to thank my boys who are not here, but they're here with me in spirit, Sterling and Octavius. And I want to thank them for giving me the greatest title that I can hold, Mother. I spent the last 21 years in law enforcement at the Detroit Police Department. Some of the most rewarding and heartbreaking events in my life occurred during that time. Being a part of so many community initiatives that connected the police to the community, such as National Night Out, Seniors Cupid Ball, and youth programs such as City Camp and the Brotherhood and Sister programs have been so rewarding for so many people in our city. Also, I've had tragedy. The tragic death of my dear friend, Sergeant Elaine Williams. Sergeant Williams lost her life 2 years ago to domestic violence. She was a vibrant soul. She had a smile that would light up any room that she walked into. Sergeant Williams was taken from us so early. When I got that call that night about her death, I rushed to the scene and I felt helpless as I watched grieving family and my peers. To this day, we are still waiting for justice for Elaine. Also, the death of Christian, a 3-year-old. He was on his way to see Sesame Street live when he was gunned down in his godmother's car because of a road rage incident. These senseless acts of violence never get easy to deal with. These type of incidents is why I'm so passionate about what I do, about being a peace officer. This is my calling, to serve my community and be a positive change. I faced many obstacles in my journey, some because of my gender and some because of my race. I never let these obstacles stand in my way. And I'm determined to assure that issues of gender and race do not negatively impact our recruits, our officers, or the residents of Columbus. Earlier today, I sent a message to the division, letting our officers know our first order of business needs to be trust. I need to earn their trust, and together, we need to rebuild the trust of our community. Because without trust and cooperation, we can't do anything. We need that to tackle the biggest challenges facing this great city right now. We have a lot of work to do, and I emphasize the word we. No one person can make these changes. We need to have everyone involved to change a culture, rebuild trust, and restore neighborhood safety. This is going to take all of us, police officers, residents, faith leaders, business community, elected officials, and even you, the media. And we cannot be afraid of the changes that must be made. I do not live my life in fear. I will not lead this division with fear. Because in the words of one of the most influential leaders and mentors that I've had, cops count and leadership matters. Again, I offer my heartfelt thanks to Mayor Ginther and Director Pettis for choosing me to be the next chief of police for the city of Columbus. Thank you.
We're very fortunate to have with us today Bishop Timothy Clark, one of the great faith leaders in our community, who has been an incredible resource, advice, guide, counsel to me, both personally and professionally for many years. And so glad to have Bishop Clark with us today to offer some words of encouragement A prayer for our new chief and our community. Bishop?
Good afternoon. And to our mayor, who I am so appreciative of the work that he has not only done, but the labor that he has put into this selection. To my dear friend and brother, Safety Service Director Ned Pettis, and to our new Chief of Police. We are honored that you are here, and we are excited about what the future holds. I think that Chief Bryant set for us a marker when she used that inclusive word, we. This will not be done by a person. It will not be done by a party. It will be done by the public citizenry of this city. As we roll up our sleeves, put our shoulders to the wheel, and work to make Columbus the great city that she has the potential to be. I am excited. We are all excited as we welcome this Nubian queen to lead our police department. I believe a fresh wind will blow. I believe a new spirit will emerge. And I believe we're going to, together, see Columbus go to another level. Would you join me in prayer? How grateful and how thankful we are that you cause the solitary to sit together in families. You don't let us live by ourselves. It grieves you when we do. It is why in the scripture you created cities of refuge, that even those who were running would have a place of safety and refuge. You have made Columbus one of the great cities, not only of our state, but of our nation. And today we stand poised to step into another level of that greatness. We thank you for our mayor and for his team. We thank you for our safety service director and those who work with him. We are thankful for every member of the Columbus Police Department. We thank you for every officer, wherever they serve, whatever precinct, whatever capacity. And as our new chief steps now to the helm of this ship, how we pray you will crown her head with wisdom and with knowledge, with discernment and with direction. We lift her sons to you, her mom, her family, and we cover her now with our love and with our prayers. Irrespective of our faith background, all of us join together to wish for her the best, to wish for her good success, and to wish for our city many years of faithful leadership. We pray now that your kingdom come in new ways, your will be done, and that all who wear the badge, who wear the blue, will always know that they are covered not only by your hand, but by the prayers of all of us who want justice to roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Grant it today, and we give you praise. Amen.
Thank you so much, Bishop, for all of your work, service, leadership, guidance, counsel. I do want to reiterate something that Bishop spoke to. What our community needs now is unity. We need to wrap Chief Bryant in the support she needs, both from within the division and from the community itself. I'm excited that Chief Bryant is joining the city. But I want to emphasize that she and not any one person is our Savior. No one is coming to save us. If we want accountability, transparency, safety, if we want trust restored, it's up to each and every one of us. She's a great dynamic leader, reformer, change agent. But she alone cannot bring the change we want and need. She will help lead us, but we all have a critically important role to play. As President Obama said, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. I ask everyone to remember that we all have a role to play in our city's future. Together, we can move toward healing, towards 21st century community policing, and toward a city that is safe for everyone. But only if we're committed and willing to do the hard work and take on the great challenges of our time. But this is Columbus, and this is what we do. We were made for this time, and we have the right leader as our next chief to guide us in that critically important work. I'll be happy to take a few questions, and Director Chief Bryant and I will hang around for one-on-ones as well. Yes, Lacey.
Can I ask Chief
Sure.
Bryant a couple questions?
We'll start with one. We'll let everybody take turns.
Greedy reporter. First of all, congratulations. Welcome to Columbus. The mayor has changed a few things in the position, allowing for you to bring your own staff, assistant chiefs. Is that something you plan on doing?
I absolutely plan on looking at that. Right now, I can't give you a definitive answer on exactly what I'm going to do, but that is absolutely something I'm looking into.
When is your first day?
I am working towards that right now. I want to get here as soon as possible. You know, I have some things to wrap up at home, but I want to hit the ground running as soon as possible, so I will be trying to get to move here as quickly as possible. I can't give you a definitive date, though.
Hi, congratulations, Jamela Muhammad with Spectrum
Thank
News.
you.
What are some programs from Detroit that you're hoping to maybe not mirror here in Columbus, but we've seen, like Mayor Ginther talked about, some alarming homicide rates here, especially these past few weeks. What are some things that you're hoping to bring from Detroit here in Columbus that you think would help that?
Oh, well, I'm absolutely hoping to bring some youth programs here. I think that's so extremely important, and I think it's important to get to them prior to high school. So I'm looking at middle school age children. We absolutely have to wrap our arms around them. We can't just look at it. We can't arrest our way out of crime. That's just the reality. So we have to look at some socioeconomic issues, find out what's going on with children, get them into some programs. Look at the after-school programs. Look at some of the neighborhoods where they may not be as well off. And do they have programs for single mothers where their children are engaged? So I'm definitely going to look into that. And of course, I'm going to look into some crime initiatives as well.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the group? I'll ask Chief Bryant and Director Pettis. Certainly I'll hang around. As you all know, you could ask me anything in the world, but take it easy on the Director-in-Chief. Yes?
Mayor or Director, this may be a question for you. There are requirements in the state of Ohio to become a peace officer training within the state of Ohio. How is that going to be bridged so that there's a soon start date for new Chief Bryant?
I think, it's something that we made clear, throughout the search process, and the chief will have 12 months, and that'll be part of the contract, is becoming, certified peace officer with OPATA here in the state of Ohio. Right now, looking at things that she already has coming from the state of Michigan and how that matches up with OPATA requirements. But she's fully aware of that, committed to that. We're obviously going to do everything we can to make sure she's successful with that.
Is she able to create programs, lead, wear the uniform, wear the badge without that OPATA certification?
Yes. I think the only thing that she cannot do is arrest or shoot anybody. Is that right, Chief? So, in the last time we had a chief of police arrest or shoot anybody, it's been quite some time. But she will be a great leader and will do all the things that need to be done until she is officially OPATA certified.
Will there be help at the same level, such as a Chief Woods or someone to help bridge that gap during that 12-month time who is certified?
Sure. I mean, she will identify her lead staff, the number of assistant chiefs. There's a reason we created that position, because what we heard from candidates the last time we went through the search process, particularly external ones, is that they needed to be able to bring their team or hire folks to help them implement the change and reform we wanted to see. That's certainly something that we talked to Chief Bryant about, and as she mentioned, is planning to do as well. But the other officers that are part of the rank and file will remain there and continue to work with her to police our city. Yes?
Mayor Ginther, what did you see in Chief Bryant that maybe you didn't see in other candidates, or you didn't see as much of, that led you to choose Chief Bryant out of the pool of candidates, particularly those final three? There
were so many great candidates. We're blessed. I think part of what we did, as I just mentioned to Jeff, there are three things we learned the first time we went through this process, particularly from external candidates that did not apply the first time but did this time around. We needed to make a commitment to hire externally. The first time we went through this, we only looked externally. It's the first time we even looked externally in the city's history. Folks wanted to know we were serious about it. The second thing was to make sure that we were competitive with respect to our financial package and benefits. And third was probably the most important, as I just mentioned in my comments to Jeff, is the ability to bring a team with them. And what we heard from candidates across the country is that that was critically important. We couldn't ask one person to lead the type of transformational change and reform we wanted to see happen here all by themselves. They needed to bring a team with them and folks that would be part of their change and reform efforts. I would say there are so many things that I think make Chief Bryant stand out to me. She understands that it's not just about enforcement. It's about empathy and engagement. I think she has shown throughout her tenure in Detroit a willingness to change culture and take on tough challenges, hold officers accountable when they do things that are inappropriate and improper and outside of community expectations, but also offer support and mentorship and help to officers to help them develop and grow, particularly women and officers of color, which I think is severely lacking within our division of police. I think the fact that she was promoted so many times in over a 21-year career, I think her experience with a consent decree, I think her experience in working in a state that has collective bargaining and a collective bargaining agreement, all of those things. But for me also, I think she has, Bishop and I have talked about this, I think the right spirit about her and an ability to connect. She isn't just the chief for the police officers of the Division of Police, she's the chief for the community as well. And I thought that that really came through to me as I interviewed all the candidates and ultimately made a decision on Chief Bryant. Yes?
Mayor, you touched on this a few minutes ago, but could you give us maybe a better idea of what the transition process is going to look like? I don't know if you have a better idea on the timing, but then once Chief Bryant is here, kind of how that'll work.
Yeah, I think we'll have more details in the days and weeks ahead. We wanted to make sure that we shared with the public and the community who the next chief of police is going to be. She'll have time, I owe it to Mayor Duggan. He's a dear friend of mine in Detroit. I was telling Ms. Bryant earlier that I'm not sure how quickly he'll forgive me, but he will over time. It's probably permission and forgiveness. I had to ask to go into Detroit and find an outstanding candidate. But I also want to honor her commitments there and make that transition. We owe that to the people of Detroit, to Mayor Duggan, but also wanted to name her, get her here as quickly as possible, have her identify her leadership team, and during that transition, and obviously interim chief Woods has agreed to stay on until that transition takes place. So I feel very good about where we are. We'll have more details days, weeks ahead that we'll be happy to share with you. Yes?
You've talked a lot about how important transparency is. A lot of the search committee members on the last chief search have expressed frustration that they didn't think this process was as transparent as last time. Do you think you could have been more open and honest with the community about the process, the steps, the candidates, where things stood?
I think we were pretty clear from the outset about how we were going to go about this. And, we had several thousand people that were part of the virtual town hall, far more than we ever had, that we could have fit into East High School when we did it in person through the last search process. Several hundred folks were able to submit questions. Our external affairs team did a significant amount of outreach to community, faith, and other groups, from BRED to the FOP. We touched base with everybody after the virtual town hall. So obviously, we always can do a better job of communication and engagement, but I feel very comfortable and confident with where we are, this process, and with Elaine Bryant as our next chief of police. Yes?
Mayor, in that same vein, the news came out yesterday that this was, the Chief Bryant was going to be your pick, and yet there was no comment from your office until just a few moments ago. Can you talk about why that was? And you're talking about wanting somebody to be transparent, and yet your office was unwilling to confirm the information that had been relayed to us by.
Well, this was always scheduled, in the plan to make the announcement today. As you know, one of the other finalists got a little ahead of us with respect to her announcement and sharing things via social media. We respect that. Everybody can do things how they like. We thought the best and appropriate way to introduce Chief Bryant to this community was in this forum, so we could answer all of the questions of the press, engage with the community, and be as transparent and open as possible.
For Chief Bryant?
Yes.
Thank you again, and welcome from us as well. The mayor has said in the past, and I don't know if you know enough of this department yet, but has said that systemic racism exists in policing and specifically within the Columbus Police Department. Just being new to this department, obviously, but have you experienced or encountered that in your prior departments, and how would one go about rooting that out of policing?
Yes, as the mayor indicated, there is systemic racism, not just in police departments, everywhere. Hospitals, every government agency, and I have experienced that. But I don't want to get ahead of that and say, that there's systemic racism, but what I will tell you is this. We're going to absolutely look at everything once I get here and determine, are we looking at implicit bias? Are we looking at systemic racism? What type of training have the members had in regards to diversity, inclusion? So if there is an issue, we're absolutely going to address it head on. I'm going to address it head on. I'm not going to run from it.
In Columbus and elsewhere, a lot over the past year specifically, there have been issues with officer morale, and we've seen that documented here in Columbus. Improving morale, is that important to you? Is it vital to the ability to run this department that you work on that specifically?
It is extremely important to improve morale with police officers. They are the backbone of the department, so we absolutely have to get in there, and part of that is building trust. They have to trust me. They have to get to know me and know that I have their best interests at heart. So going in, being transparent with them, making them part of the solution, getting them involved in the process of being able to change the department and move forward in a positive light and connecting with that community is going to be huge. So morale is extremely important. I will be meeting with the troops, boots to the ground, from day one, and I will be involved. They will be involved in every step of this process.
And we often talk in a lot of the public arenas about bridging a gap between genders, between races, and oftentimes we talk about that only going in one direction. As a black woman in Columbus, how do you bridge the gap back to a force that is a lot male, a lot white?
So, good question. And it's funny because a lot of people make the assumption that when you come in, that because you're a minority, that you're looking to just strictly address minorities. No, this is about inclusion. It's about equity for everyone. Everybody has a place at this table. And it takes all of us to make it work. The police department needs to reflect the community in which it polices. And that's what we're asking. We're asking for more diversity, but absolutely, I'm not excluding anyone from this process. Everyone is needed.
I think it's important, Chief, if I could just add. I just want to make sure we're being perfectly clear here. Systemic racism is not an opinion. It's not a feeling. It is not an idea. It is a matter of fact and history and experience. And the Matrix report and the recommendations of the Safety Advisory Commission speak to the fact of the experience of women in African-American officers, what they experience within the division, and what they see demonstrated by members of the division in their interactions with the public. Those are facts. And so it's critically important, I think, as a community, that we understand that we can only change something once we acknowledge it exists. And so I didn't want that moment to pass without calling that out for exactly what it is. Lacey, you had another question.
Yeah, for Chief Bryant. Sorry, Mayor. From my understanding, you were able to spend a weekend here in Columbus. Just want to know your first impressions. I understand you got a chance to maybe talk with some of the officers.
I did. I think Columbus is a beautiful city. I had an opportunity to not only talk to the officers, but talk to some of the community members as well. So I love it. I think it's going to be a great place to live. I think it's going to be a great place to police.
We'll hang around for any one-on-ones. Thanks, everybody. Welcome, Chief.